Coming up, latest fusion discovery rocks scientific community. Not necessarily the news, with Annabelle Gurwitch and Tom Parks. Special reports from Merrill Marco, Richard Rosen, and Joe Guppy. Commentary by Will Durst, and featuring Lucy Webb. Brought to you tonight by Exxon, where we say there's plenty more where that came from. And by Bounty Jumbo Rolls, for those really big spills. And now, NNTN anchors Annabelle Gurwitch and Tom Parks.
Good evening. I'm Annabelle Gurwitch, and welcome to the first live, Not Necessarily the News.
And I'm Tom Parks, and later on in the show I'll have a live interview with the Vice President and Mrs. Quayle from Washington. This is a Not Necessarily the News first you won't want to miss. Now, our top story. As you are aware, reliable information out of China has been hard to come by since the imposition of the on-again, off-again news blackout. Our NNTN correspondent in Beijing, John Ross, was able to smuggle out this information. You are greatly admired by those around you. We hope to hear more from John soon. Meanwhile, the Chinese government has announced the most severe crackdown yet on student demonstrators. All dorm privileges have been canceled, and the student pub will be closed indefinitely. The United States, in an effort to encourage the growing spirit of democracy and capitalism in China, this week issued a gold MasterCard to student protest leader Wang Dan. A State Department spokesperson said, "We're going to start him off with a credit limit of $500. Annabelle?
And you knew it would happen. Hollywood has already gotten its hands on the situation in China. Filming has just begun on Can't Stop the People, a musical produced by Alan Carr, who did such a fine job this year's Oscars. Rob Lowe had been slated to play student leader Wang Dan, but was replaced at the last minute by fellow Brat Packer Judd Nelson. And now with a report on ailing former Philippine dictator Ferdinand Marcos, here's Joe Guppy live in Honolulu.
Thank you, Annabelle. I'm standing here outside the corridor leading to what will probably be Ferdinand Marcos' deathbed. If Marcos should slip away soon, and doctors tell me that he could go any time now, we'll be standing by here live exclusively on NNTN.
Thank you, Joe. We'll be back to check on Marcos throughout the broadcast.
In a surprise move, Panamanian troops have been airlifted to Fort Worth, Texas, where several Panamanian nationals work at a hat factory. President Noriega explained, "Our citizens fear for their lives. We sent the troops to protect them." Well, sometimes I guess you just have to wave that big stick.
In other news, Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who just revealed that she is pregnant with fellow Justice Thurgood Marshall's child, is now leaning against overturning Roe v. Wade. And in a related story, anti-abortion forces have announced that should the controversial French abortion pill, the RU486, be made available in the U.S., they will market their own pro-life pill. When taken, the pro-life pill reduces a woman's capacity to make an intelligent moral choice for herself. And David Duke, the former head of the Ku Klux Klan, who was elected to the Louisiana state legislature, this week defended his past affiliation with that white supremacist group.
I'm sorry the fact that I was in the Klan will make some people think that I believe in violence or racial hatred, because I do not.
Later, in his new office, Duke expressed his hope for a superior first term. And rumors that the Bush administration does, in fact, exist were confirmed today when government observers caught sight of a clear, effective policy. Reports indicate that the policy is connected to George Bush and may have something to do with the government. We'll be back with more after this.
I was buying a new sweater with my Citibank Visa card, and the clerk told me I'd reached my limit, so I called Citibank.
Well, when Mr. Phillips called me, he explained his problem. I checked his records and noticed that he was eligible for an increase in his credit limit, so I gave it to him.
Well, so she gave it to me. I mean, right there over the phone. I must have bought everything in sight.
It felt so good to help. That's the kind of people we are at Citibank.
Then the bill came, and I realized there was no way I could pay it. So I figured, what the hell? I called up Citibank. I got the same woman, and I told her my card had been stolen.
He sounded scared. So I looked at his account, and sure enough, I noticed an unusual increase in activity.
So what did she do?
I immediately erased the charges and issued him a new card. People helping people. That's what Citibank is all about.
An Aryan Brotherhood meeting is no place for embarrassing stubble. That's why I choose the Skinhead electric shaver from Remington. Remington's patented twisted cross blades make every shave a close shave for that billiard ball look women admire. And now there's new Lady Skinhead for the minority-hating woman in your life. Skinhead and Lady Skinhead, new from Remington, an unequal opportunity employer.
And on the other coast, the one with the good schools and the bad weather, our New York correspondent Richard Rosen has just completed a major investigation into one of that city's growing crises. Here's his report.
New York City. Drug abuse, rising crime, political scandal, noise pollution, real estate development spinning out of control, the homeless. Now it can add another grave problem to the list. It's shocking, it's widespread, and the city seems unable to do a thing about it. The problem? New York City's overhoused. That's right, in this city there are thousands, some say tens of thousands of people who live and sleep in apartments that are much, much too big for them.
Actually, this problem is just coming to our attention. And it is very disturbing that there is a growing population of people who choose to live in complete luxury.
This apartment behind me is just one of many in New York City where this tragedy can be observed firsthand. But before I take you inside, I want to warn you, it's not a pretty sight. The woman you're about to see, we'll call her Hillary, lives in abject opulence. Hillary, hi, I'm Richard Rosen. I talked to you before.
Hi.
We asked her if she'd mind opening up her world to our viewers.
Okay.
And we weren't quite prepared for what she was about to show us. What's this room?
I'm not sure really. Maybe the foyer.
And what do you do in here?
After I pack for the islands, this is where I'll put my luggage before Ramon comes to pick it up.
It must be very hard.
Oh, yes. Especially when Ramon is off. Now, over here we have a powder room.
How many rooms would you say you have altogether?
Would you like to go see the other wing?
The psychological impact of such wrenching affluence is not hard to see. But in our busy lives, we may not always make time to think about the Hillarys of the world and their problems. Yet for those afflicted with too many hallways, too many rooms, too many doors, in short, the overhoused, these problems can add up to a devastating syndrome.
My job is to try to move them into something more suitable so that they can live like other people. But they're so resistant. They actually tell us that they like living like this. They say it's what they're used to. They just won't admit that it's inhuman for people to live like this.
As serious as the problem of the overhoused is, officials now fear that the problem may be even worse than originally thought. Recent figures reveal a shocking hidden dimension to the crisis. More than 60% of the overhoused are now saddled with an added crushing burden. Summer houses. Residents they feel obligated to occupy for only a few weeks or months during the year, but which otherwise remain completely vacant. It's not a problem that will go away by itself. In fact, a federal task force has been created to tackle the issue, virtually assuring that the problem will be with us for many years to come. In New York City, I'm Richard Rosen.
Thank you, Richard. Well, we promised everyone a live interview with the Vice President and Mrs. Quayle, and here they are, live from Washington, D.C., the second family. We want to thank you both for doing this. We appreciate it very, very much.
Our pleasure. Thank you. We're glad to have you in our home.
Mr. Vice President, you've heard the jokes. Where's the president? He's tucking in the vice president. Pretty harmless stuff, but some of it's been fairly nasty. I think the Washington Post even referred to you as Robert Redford without the political experience. When you read that, when you see that, does it ever make you angry?
No, I was never angry.
Well, disappointed at least.
I was disappointed. As you know, I was a journalist at one time in my life.
Well, your father owned a newspaper, but I'm not sure that makes you a journalist. As a matter of fact, we've been told you never did anything but play golf and watch the trust fund grow.
Well, that's just totally untrue.
Mrs. Quayle?
No, the first thing I've ever heard of it.
Well, okay. I guess the big question is Dan Quayle capable of making decisions on his own?
Sit up a little straighter.
Is he the kind of man who could lead the nation in a time...
Too much white. It makes you look very fat.
The public thinks of you as a hairspray commercial posing as a politician. When the general public thinks of Dan Quayle...
Oh, I don't think the general public knows a lot about Dan Quayle. They haven't been told a lot about Dan Quayle.
Well, does that concern you?
Not really.
How about you, Mrs. Quayle? Do you think your husband could be President of the United States of America?
Oh, definitely.
I have Bobby Knight's basketball books on how to be a good coach and what it takes to have a winning team.
Well, I'm certainly reassured. Mrs. Quayle, how about you?
Oh, I have my own theories.
But you think your husband could stand the pressure?
Under duress, he does a fine job.
I'm sure that he does. How about Mrs. Quayle, sir? How does she help you in your day-to-day life as vice president?
She gets coffee. And,
That's cute. Now look at your wife. I want to try something a little. Keep looking at her. She at one time said you were, quote, very, very sexy.
Oh, I don't believe I ever said that.
Well, now, describe your wife.
Very, very smart.
Oh, I'd love to pursue this. But we have run out of time. Could we do this again? Could we visit with you both in your home and talk to you like this?
Oh, absolutely.
Great. That's terrific. Well,
I had no idea how much time it was going to take.
Oh, well, it's live television, Miss Quayle. I apologize for that. But I would like to thank you both.
What we talked about was Dan Quayle. I was the center of attention.
Oh, thank you. We'll be right back.
Confused about which cereal to eat?
This one has vitamins, but no fiber.
This one has fiber, but no oat bran.
Why not try new Totally Complete?
Totally Complete?
Totally Complete has all the vitamins of the leading cereal, plus fiber to help keep you regular, and oat bran to help lower cholesterol.
Great. Honey, would you pour me some coffee?
There's no need. Each bowl of Totally Complete contains the caffeine equivalent of 6 cups of coffee.
Wow. Oh, honey, would you like some bacon?
Why bother? See those crispy chunks? Those are tasty bits of pork for protein.
Say, what are these?
Those are bits of aspirin for occasional minor aches and pains, plus ibuprofen for swelling, all with a delicious antibiotic coating to help fight infection.
Gee, I like that.
Get new Totally Complete. And now try new Totally Complete nighttime formula with Percodan.
Exxon reported today that the cleanup of last month's oil spill in Alaska is going well and is actually ahead of schedule. Meanwhile, in a gesture to boost their public image, Exxon lowered their prices 10 cents a gallon and recently started giving away premiums like these handsome paperweights for every fill-up. In a related story blaming slow ticket sales, operators have decided to shut down the glass-bottom boat ride in the Gulf of Alaska. The only other active glass-bottom boat ride in the U.S. is in Boston Harbor, and they're not doing too well either. Annabelle?
We have a report that there's been an urgent development at the Marcos bedside. Let's go live now to Joe Guppy in Honolulu. Joe?
Thank you, Annabelle. Well, Marcos did have a heart defibrillation a few minutes ago, but the word now is that he has rallied from that attack. However, doctors have assured me that we should have a definite thumbs down sometime soon. Stay tuned. Annabelle?
Thanks, Joe. We'll check in with you later. And now a special report from Meryl Marco.
She was a beautiful newswoman who rose to prominence as a network anchor. He was a handsome newsman who became known as the host of a syndicated tabloid show. When they met, there were fireworks, and pretty soon they were making headlines of their own. But all their journalistic know-how, all their investigative skills, couldn't save them from that fight at dinner. Hello, everyone. I'm Meryl Marco, and this is a current event. She was a top newswoman, sought after by one network until another network made her an offer she couldn't refuse. He was a top, well, maybe not a top newsman, but he had his own syndicated show, and that's kind of a big deal, too. They fell in love and married, and soon they were making their own kind of headlines. But her star rose first and faster than his. Some say that's when nerves began to get frayed, egos began to be bruised. And then one night, in a top Manhattan eatery or bistro, tempers flared, voices were raised, as weekend anchor turned upon tabloid host in a shocking test of wills.
We were sitting next to them and no one was talking at their table. He didn't look very happy. He was kind of making a face. Is there something wrong with the light in here?
Nothing's wrong.
And why are you making that face?
I'm not making any face.
Or even the woman in the shadow noticed it? This is about that Magic Johnson thing again, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Because I married you.
Oh boy, lucky me.
Then why are you acting like this?
I'm not acting like anything. I just don't happen to like fish right now.
Well, why did you order fish if you didn't feel like eating fish?
I ordered fish, because when I order steak, you whine at me. No one on network orders steak.
Maury, steak has cholesterol, and your doctor said we don't.
Fine, whatever you say goes. You're right, as usual.
Maury, that is not true. I always have to be right.
Next time, don't even ask me. Why don't you just ask your little friend Dan Rather what he's having?
Let's go.
Sit down.
Don't tell me to sit down. Now that you're going to take this attitude that I always have to be right.
Come back here.
This is just a big smokescreen, because we both know that what you're really upset about is that I called you Mr. Syndication.
I'm not upset about
and
that.
when I used the word sleazebag, I was referring to the serial killer on your show, not you.
That is not the word I objected to.
Look, the word tabloid only means a little newspaper with a lot of pictures.
And I guess they don't use pictures in network news,
So
do
you
they?
are still mad.
Ow! Ooh. There's nothing wrong with syndication.
I never said there was anything wrong with syndication. At least we don't do those tawdry dramatizations.
Well, that's our show for tonight. You won't want to miss our exciting conclusion tomorrow night, which features an exclusive reenactment of Maury Povich pretending to read a book while Connie Chung gets a phone call from Magic Johnson. I guarantee you it's every bit as peculiar as what you just saw, if not more so. Until next time, cable viewers.
Thank you, Meryl. That was peculiar and odd, I might add. Now, from time to time, we will be presenting commentary on controversial issues. Here with a report on President Bush's first 100 days is one of America's top political humorists, Will Durst.
Hey, Annabelle. Hi, guys. So here we are, 123 days into the Bush administration, and what a wacky water slide ride it's been, huh? So far, he's done nothing. He shot some hoops, flung a horseshoe or two, and had puppies. That's it. Admittedly, he's done nothing very well. The only problem with doing nothing is how can you tell when you're done? Well, he's just being cautious. Cautious. He's like he's not cautiously stranded in the North Atlantic or he'd be in danger of being run down by a speeding glacier. If he gets any more cautious, he's going to flip it in reverse. And who would be able to tell the difference? I've seen asparagus tips appear more decisive. Check this out. 3/4 of his administrative posts have yet to be filled, and the appointments he has made are all the same exact guy. Some goofy-looking white dude with glasses from Texas. It's Honky Man and the team Xerox. He's going to sit down at cabinet meetings and find you surrounded by a room full of less interesting renditions of himself. Some may even be translucent. And most of these career cheesecloths have occupied the same jobs before, either for Ford or Nixon or Reagan. The hell is the deal here? It's like the same 500 people keep running the country. Every once in a while, they voluntarily switch positions, like in volleyball. Every 4 years, it's rotate! Bush told the press the president he'd most like to emulate is Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah, right. Walk softly and carry a limp stick. How about that bold stance he took with Noriega? Don't steal the election, Manuel, or you'll lose the respect of the international community. You might as well admonish a rabid dog to behave or you'll take away his rubber mouse. George still claims he didn't know Noriega was dealing drugs. Hey, we knew. And we were at the head of the CIA for a year. My favorite moment, though, was when Bush said he was personally going to go to bat for John Tower. I guess Sam Nunn was able to call the outfield up on that one, huh? Everybody in, come on, easy out, easy out. No batter, no batter. Of course, maybe I'm expecting too much. I mean, after all, they did sell us Bush as Reagan without the charm, which is a lot like calling the desert just like the beach without the water. And so what? He's hit the ground crawling. At least he's healthy. And he seems to chew his food well. And with old Danny Boy just a chicken bone away from the presidency, isn't that the most important thing? Thanks, I've been Dirk.
Thank you, Will. We'll be back after this.
Coming up, those Rob Lowe tapes.
I rose. I said, will the senator from North Carolina yield on a point of personal privilege? He hesitated.
Senator, excuse me, there's no time to lose. A vote has been called on the rider to the budget authorization bill. I'd say we have about 5 minutes to get to the floor.
Oh, you ladies, excuse me. The budget authorization bill.
You elected him to keep an eye on your state's piece of the pork barrel. But now, he's useless. That's why our safety engineers have come up with a unique testing device to ensure every vote will be a sober one.
I'm sorry, Senator. Looks as if we're going to have to abstain on this one.
The 1989 Senate with breathalyzer, safer than ever.
Once again, let's see what's happening at the Marcos bedside. Let's go live to Joe Guppy in Honolulu. Joe, what's going on there?
Well, Marcos is still near death.
Is there any chance we'll have that death before we sign off tonight?
I'm afraid not, Annabelle. However, we've received word that the Ayatollah Khomeini is back in the hospital. I'm on my way to Iran. I'll have that report for you next week.
That's great, Joe. We'll look forward to that. Tom?
Members of George Bush's Secret Service contingent got quite a workout last night when the president plunged into a black tie gala celebrating 4 months in the White House. Later, the exhausted bodyguards got a chance to unwind at their own private party after work. The EPA issued a warning today that the mercury you buy may be contaminated with heavy levels of tuna. The fish somehow swam up the water ducts and into the processing plant. If your thermometer tastes slimy or has tiny bones, throw it away. Annabelle?
The Disney Corporation announced the site of their next amusement park today, so they will have plenty of room to expand. They have purchased India. The company adds, current residents will be allowed to stay in the park as long as they buy the $30 ticket each day, follow the dress code, and get a haircut. And on a humorous note, A school bus carrying 45 blind orphan children plunged over a cliff today, exploding into flames and landing on a puppy farm run by elderly nuns. Oh, I'm sorry, that doesn't say humorous note, it says horrendous note. Authorities are still sifting through the twisted carnage for puppies, orphans, and nuns. Tom?
And finally, ending months of speculation, Merv Griffin today outbid Donald Trump, reportedly offering a record-breaking $215 million to purchase Ava Gabor. At a press conference, Griffin announced plans for a $37 million facelift for the aging Hollywood landmark. And that's not necessarily the news for tonight. I'm Tom Parks.
And I'm Annabelle Gurwitch. We'll be back.